This is like state-of-the-art technology, and with the Series X, it's the most powerful game console ever created for Xbox, and so we wanted it to be to sort of characterize that.
Microsoft designer Carl Ledbetter brings his creative thinking to the lounge to discuss his work on the new design-savvy Xbox Series X and S, what he considers to be the biggest accomplishment of his career, and how furniture and architecture have had a major impact on his work. Like I say, let's get into it. What are some of the individuals in the design community which inspire your work?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, first of all, some of the people I work with right now, day to day, I'm incredibly inspired by their work. I mean, so I feel like I'm fortunate to work with super talented designers just daily. Outside of Microsoft and Xbox and the design team, I'm inspired by some of the local architects. Olsen Kundig's doing some fantastic work. There's a company called Teenage Engineering based out of Sweden. They're doing some really interesting work in electronics.
Yeah.
So I'm inspired by what they do. And some of my longtime design heroes, Charles and Ray Eames, their work in furniture and materials.
I was going to ask you, was there an era or a time or a type of design that you are more likened to?
Ooh, it all depends. It's like I love materials.
Yeah.
I love how technology and breakthroughs in technology materials can influence the product.
Yes.
And so like with Charles and Ray Eames, bent wood or fiberglass, things like that really influence what you could do with the design. And so we do that every day with electronics.
Do you take not are inspired from other aspects of design then, like furniture, like architecture, and how do you implement that into the technology with a gaming system?
Well, I think it all gets back to people.
Okay.
So if you're into gaming or you're into computers, it's less about the technology or the device, or in many times the environment you're in. It's about what's going to get you to do what you want to do in the best way possible. So in that case, you'd say the best hardware design is hardware that disappears. Like stuff you don't even see it.
Yes.
Like ideally, you're just in the flow. You're working on your content. You're playing the game, and everything around you kind of dissolves into the background.
You spend hours to make it not be there.
That's right. That's right.
Is that an that seems like that would be an interesting conversation to have at a company like Microsoft, though, because it seems like obviously you're saying it's not about the technology, it's about the design. But it seems like they're so technology based.
Yeah.
That would be how's that conversation go between the design individuals and then the people actually on the tech side?
Well, it's interesting because we think about people doing the things they want to do, and so whether that's if they're playing a game or creating content or something, we think about how do we enable that. So in the case of devices, the better it performs, the more ergonomic it is, more comfortable it is. The more it's able to be used by more people in more places around the globe, the more successful it'll be. And then on the back end, we have Azure cloud services, these things that just power things wherever you go. So technology can kind of manifest itself in many ways. And when we're designing products and hardware, it's like, how do we capitalize it the best way possible to make it a good experience for people?
People don't even realize how the design and the architecture changes how they feel, how they move, how they act, without even knowing it. Like they don't, having substances or textures that are next to each other that are different, which makes you act a certain way or feel a certain way or whatever. Can you talk about that with your guys' design and how people, when they're playing the games, how that, like I said, it kind of disappears away altogether?
Yeah. So just this past year, we released the new Xbox Series X and Series S game consoles. And then also a new controller that goes with those. And in the case of the designs of the consoles, they're very architectural in nature. And we design them that way intentionally because they're really designed around optimizing what's inside. It's not sexy stuff. This is like, processors and thermals and hard drives and disk drive, all these kinds of different things that are inside. But we try to make it as small as possible, as efficient and quiet as possible, and then we design it in a way that people can put it in more places in their home. Yeah. So that's one sense of designing something to be used by people. And on the controller, it's almost designed from the outside in. So it's designed for comfort. And in that case, we actually redesigned the controller to fit more hands.
Is it form over function for you, or is it function over form?
Well, I'm function over form.
Okay.
Because you got to be able to it's got to be useful.
Absolutely.
And then if a product is useful, then it kind of hits the next mark, which is, okay, that's a valuable thing for me to use every day, but how do you build the connection with it? Like, how do you love that product?
Yeah.
And that's the delight part, where sometimes you see something and you go, I don't know what that is, but that looks interesting. I want to learn more. It's engaging, and maybe you pick it up and you start to use it and you go, oh, this is phenomenal. Yeah. This is super comfortable. Oh, I can use it. I can perform well. And then over time, it just becomes innate. Like, I love this thing. And so it is building a relationship with people through products.
Definitely. So you mentioned the new Series X and Series S, incredibly chic and simple. What was your team's desire for making that design leap, making it super simple, super chic?
I mean, it is that. It's this is like state of the art technology, and with the Series X, it's the most powerful game console ever created for Xbox, and so we wanted it to be to sort of characterize that.
Yeah.
And there's the physics of the actual hardware that we have to design within, but then we design it in a way that it has that mystique to it. So if you look at it, it's sort of austere and architectural, but when you look into the top, we have this layered effect that kind of surprises you with this green color that comes through. Yeah. And that's sort of a surprise, and it sort of tells you the story of Xbox inside. And so that is very intentional, and we wanted it to feel that way. And then the S, we gave it a different color scheme. So it's white and black, has a big round iconic signature to it. It's a little more playful.
Yeah.
So this is a product that's giving games, that's making games more accessible to more people, and it's more affordable. And so we wanted it to just be a little bit more playful. People look at the console and the controller as one aspect of the personality of Xbox. So we wanted it to feel approachable, premium, sophisticated, reliable, that it can fit in anybody's home. It's accessible by everybody. So we really consciously take that approach when we design the hardware. We're trying to make that type of personality available to more people. So yeah, along the way, people are going to, I think, have affinity to design, and designers and creators, they'll have affinity to the product because they're into it.
I have to ask, were you a gamer? What's your favorite game of all time?
I'd say I'm not like hardcore gamer, but I play a lot of games. Okay. And man, I've got some favorites. Do you think
that makes you a better designer?
Well, yeah, because I use the products.
Yeah.
I think anybody who is designing something, you have to, maybe you're not a gamer, but you better understand what gamers need.
Exactly.
So you have to go talk to people. You have to get into their space. Otherwise, how can you possibly design something for them? But that said, some of my favorite games, I have a few. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is a pretty cool one. I'm a Tomb Raider fan. Okay. I've been playing the Tomb Raider games. Call of Duty, is go-to. Always love it.
Classic.
Classic. There's so many games.
I know for me, I still go back to, I don't know if I should say this, but still, it's Pac-Man.
Oh yeah.
That is the most, maybe, literally, I will go to, if I'm at an arcade, I will play Pac-Man, and I'm,
Yeah.
And then I have daughters, so I whoop them in it. There's, so I feel like I still have accomplished something.
Yeah. Yeah, I play Pac-Man on Xbox.
So you've been there for a while. What would you consider to be your biggest accomplishment with Microsoft?
I got two. Okay. First of all, when I first went there, I was asked to design a mouse. And so I worked with the Microsoft Office people. And one thing led to another. It was about interaction. How do you make using a mouse easier for people?
Okay.
And the first thing we learned, we watched them, was they would navigate their cursor over to the side of their document to use these scroll bars. And so one thing led to another and came up with the wheel on the mouse.
Okay.
So that was a big accomplishment.
Yeah,
the
that's
wheel. My wife always
That's
teases me, like, you invented the wheel. And I was like, well, I guess on a mouse.
Yeah.
And then the other one, the one I'm most proud of, is being part of the Xbox Adaptive Controller.
Okay.
It's not something everybody sees all the time, but we took all the controls for a game controller and we put it into this device that's sold that people can basically plug any kind of input into. And what it's done is it's allowed people to play games who could not otherwise play a game with a controller. So people who may have one hand, or they can't use their arms. Like, they can adapt using this controller their input method so they can play games. And it's transformed people who they've never been able to play games before. And that's just like an awesome thing to be able to do. And the other things we do, so we've launched the new Xbox consoles and controller, and you'll notice, like, even in the past couple of months, we've announced a few special edition versions of the controller. So on our team, we have some really talented people who are, in a sense, just like fashion. They're going out and looking at what are trends, like what do gamers want? How can they express themselves in their devices in new ways? So we come up with special and limited edition hardware that celebrates gamers, and they just love it.
I mean, and let's be honest, they're the most popular people in the world right now, essentially, like the big ones. I mean, there is from a cultural perspective, like, gamers are now on the echelon of musicians and artists and everything else.
Yeah, it's crazy. Some of our latest data shows there's 3 billion people in the world playing games.
So let me ask, I would imagine you guys do collaborations with, like, gamers. Have you ever thought about doing, or do you guys, we talked about Olsen Koenig and other architects, like, would you do collaborations with them? And if so, what would it look like? Would it be on the gaming side, or would it be on a building?
Ooh, that's good. I'd say the most recent, like, hardware collaboration that we did was in 2019 for an event in London called XO19.
Okay.
We worked with Maharishi in London at their DPM studio.
Okay.
And so we created with them a unique, I like camouflage.
Yeah.
And we created a unique camouflage pattern that sort of embodied London, the UK, and the moment with Xbox in London. And so with them, we created this unique limited edition controller. I think we made 1,000 of them or something like that. They sold out, like,
Probably, yeah,
in seconds.
right. As soon as they hit online.
And it was fun. It was meaningful because there was a story behind it. Like, we were in London. We wanted to connect with the gaming culture and just people in the region at the time. And with a brand like Maharishi and their studio, DPM, it was a great moment. Now, if we were to work with an architecture firm like Olsen Koenig or somebody else, I think it would be interesting to look at how does entertainment and technology that delivers entertainment fit into people's environments. Because, like, we design products that you can put it in your hand, or you use it within your space. Even HoloLens, you put it on your head, you're immersed in it. But designing a structure, you're inside of it. Like, that's just
a total opposite.
Totally opposite. Say, well, what happens when these two things meet? Like, what happens when your content is available when you want it in your home or in some public space, and then when you don't want it, it's just gone.
Yeah.
Like, how does that would be kind of fun.
That would be super cool.
Yeah.
So I have some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And then you just give me the first thing. No, you're great. Just give me the first thing that comes to mind when I say it.
Okay.
Okay. So do you have a guilty pleasure? Like a TV show, collection, book, Nikes, camouflage?
Oh man, a guilty pleasure. Yeah, I like watching TV sometimes. My favorite show during the pandemic was WandaVision.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen it.
Okay. And the reason why it was super creative and fresh.
Yeah.
The whole storyline. And because of that, my daughter and I, we actually went back and watched some of the Avengers movies that we'd missed, just to learn a little bit more of the story behind it.
There you go.
And that was pretty cool. I love mountain biking.
Okay.
I love working on, I have an old Land Rover, so I like working on that. I like getting outside, hiking. I mean, just over the weekend we were up snowboarding, and it was beautiful with this weather.
Perfect weather.
Yeah, it was phenomenal.
If you weren't designing consoles, what would you be designing? Like if you could design something else, would it be a building or a structure? Would it be what would it be?
Well, I've got my whole list.
Okay.
Like I think, and this is a truth.
Yeah.
Frank Lloyd Wright, like his quintessential masterpiece, Falling Water. He designed that I think when he was 67.
Okay.
And that kind of started his career.
Yeah.
Like he was doing a bunch of architecture, but after that, that's when his career
That's when it took off.
when it took off. So at some point, when I'm not designing Xbox or working with the team, Microsoft, I've got my whole hit list of things I want to work on.
Okay.
So it's there. It's just finding the time to do it.
Can you mention any of them?
I'm not going to mention it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cool stuff though.
Wait. Okay.
You wait. Just wait.
We'll look for
you
it.
wait.
What is a fun fact about you that most people wouldn't know?
Most people wouldn't know I like to garden. I have a bonsai collection. Like,
yeah,
I love that.
Isn't that Karate Kid?
Yeah, maybe.
Is it? I think
I don't know.
That might be. I think it might be. Yeah. Last one. How do you take your coffee or tea?
Coffee. I like a little bit of cream in it.
Okay.
But tea, just straight up.
Yeah. See, I can't do tea at all, but I'm like with you. Same little cream with coffee. I'm good.
Yeah, yeah.
And sugar. Or
I used to do sugar, less sugar now.
Okay. Yeah.
Just
I'm COVID. I need to do no sugar.
I know COVID was brutal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.